Hi, this is Dr. Frank with the Church of Rational Truth. Today we're going to be talking about a very important topic, and that is getting out of poverty, or basically working on your finances if you are financially strapped and working on, making your life financially improved. So there's really two big aspects, and that is the amount of money coming in, the amount of money going out. This is why it's very important when someone is starting off financially to make a budget. Start listing all the costs that you have every month and trying to budget for them, ones that are fixed expenses, ones that you know every month, this is rent, this is my mortgage, this is my light bill, this is my water bill, this is how much I expect for gas, this is how much I expect for food, and then expenses that change, so food expenses, expenses for repairs, possible health bills, finding those and then taking the amount of income you're making every month, and then comparing the two, trying to get that to be positive, making sure that you're actually bringing more income than those actual costs. And it's very important to detail that. It's very important to start making sure you balance that correctly and try to maximize the amount of income and try to minimize the amount of expenses. It is very important when you're dealing with finances to live very frugally as you can. Now, obviously, there's a balance. You can't live on no food, so you have to try to itemize things and try to get them to as low as you can without driving yourself crazy. Minimizing your food budget, making wise choices, trying to get your food budget as low as possible. I myself have lived on a food budget as low as $5 or less per day. It's not easy, it's not fun, but it is doable. So a lot of it is trying to minimize expenses. The benefit of minimizing expenses is it is mathematically the same as increasing your income. If I make an extra $5 or I save an extra $5, that is still net $5 that I gain when you do the math. So reducing its expenses is really important, and it's best to try to not spend a lot of money. The one example we got all the time in medical school was spending $5 a day for coffee. You spent $5 a day through coffee through 4 years of medical school, it ends up being thousands of dollars that you could have saved by just making the coffee at home. So little things like that to reduce expenses really do add up in the long run. Something as simple as quitting smoking. If you're smoking a pack a day, that's anywhere from $3 to $7 every single day that you're saving, and those savings really add up, especially when you start adding interest. The second thing is maximizing the amount that you can make. Now, this is what is often limited. A lot of people are limited by what jobs they have available, what they can be hired to do, and you're exchanging your hourly rate for money. You're saying you're paying me X amount for my time. The way you maximize that is by making sure you are getting a job that pays you fairly for your time, and if you believe you're being underpaid, well, the way to get paid more is by increasing some sort of skill that produces more value. Usually skilled labor or any kind of skilled work pays more than just regular manual labor that is unskilled. Anyone cannot get paid more than they can actually produce in value. So if you're doing a job that only produces $7, $10, $12 an hour, no one is physically going to be able to pay you more than that. So the way to make more is to try to get some sort of skill that has more hourly value in terms of total amount produced. People who make a lot of money don't necessarily work hard, but they produce a lot per hour worked. There is also a limit to that. You can only work so many hours in a week before you go crazy and start driving yourself insane. We have physical limits. So your hourly rate can only go up so much. So you can either increase your hourly rate or work more hours, but both of those at some point become limited. The way to make good long-term money is not just maximizing that money in versus money out, but also making wise investments or wise long-term purchases. You can think of every purchase or everything you spend time and money on as an investment. Car purchase is an investment, renting is an investment, buying is an investment, a dishwasher is an investment, what food you buy is an investment, and each of those will give you a certain return. And so it's really important to understand the time value of money and the time value of your services. Having money or having any kind of goods has some sort of value that either appreciates, goes up, or depreciates with time. Really bad purchases are going to depreciate in time or cost you money over time. So for example, buying a new vehicle will drop 20 or 30% very quickly. As soon as you buy that item, you're going to lose 20 or 30% of the value. That money is depreciating throughout time. That is a net loss of an investment. Now, there might be value in that because people do need cars to survive. People need housing to live in. So you have to kind of weigh the benefits versus the drawbacks in terms of that kind of investment. But the good investments will actually net you a return or lose you the least amount. So the difference between buying a used car and buying a new car. New cars are probably going to lose a lot more relative to buying a used car in terms of that depreciation over time. Other things are in terms of debt and actually gaining wealth. So debt, you owe someone money, there is a percentage interest you have to pay. That is depreciating a certain amount over time. And there's different amounts of debt, different levels of depreciation. If you're getting, let's say, a car loan, that's usually better debt because the depreciation rate is going to be a lot less. You're only going to be paying somewhere between 2.5 and 7 or 8% depending on your credit for that. That money is going to cost more over time, but not as much as other types of debt. One of the worst types of debt that people can have who are in poverty or even in general is credit card debt that goes unpaid. That can be 14 to 22% interest. Every dollar you spend and leave in that kind of debt ends up costing you, 20 cents in a year. So you're losing more money on lost money. You're depreciating your investments. That's not good. You're not continuing to hold wealth. The people who do get out of poverty and grow are able to take whatever extra wealth and not only make decisions that don't depreciate as much, but actually take their extra wealth and put it into things that make money. It's the equivalent of buying a money machine. So there are certain assets and things out there that if you purchase them, instead of actually depreciating and losing additional value over time, will gain value over time. So a great example of this is like a bond, a savings bond. If you buy a government savings bond right now, like a 10-year savings bond, you will get 3% on that bond. So every year you put $1 in and you get 3 cents back. It's not a lot, but it's actually more money than you would have gotten if you just put it in a bank account or if you actually had that money in debt, if you actually owed that money. So a lot of it is trying to transition from having debt and losing percentages and depreciating the money and investments you already have to moving more towards a net positive. This is how people need to be able to save to retirement. They have put enough money away in investments that gain every year that they can actually start living off that gain and not having to work an hourly amount. The good thing is with saving and investing early in assets that produce additional value is if you can do that, they compound over time. If you put it away in a bond or in a stock, which is a little different, it is supposed to gain a certain percentage every year, and if you keep that, it keeps gaining year over year as long as you keep it saved in that investment. And so if you put away $100, $1,000, $10,000, every year you're gaining additional percentages that you don't use that. And that's really what a 401k, a Roth IRA, or all those retirement accounts are doing. They're buying different groups of assets, usually stocks, bonds, and treasuries, that are making some sort of return, usually between anywhere from next to 0% to 8, 9, 10%. Some really risky ones can get 11, 12% return on investment. So doing those things will actually get you an additional percentage on the money that you have. You are using money to make money, and therefore you don't have to work as much. Every dollar I get from investments is a dollar I don't have to work to earn. So those are bare basics. We can get more into investing, but it starts getting very complicated over time. We can get into running your own business because that has its own positives and negatives. But generally, the best advice is with those types of investments, risk is tied to potential reward, or at least it should be. Something that has a higher percentage return or something that theoretically is going to make you more money has a theoretically higher risk of losing you money because things that are riskier will, or at least should in a fair market, give you a better return. There are positives and negatives of doing that. If you want to get a 10% return on an investment, you're going to have a much greater risk of losing that money than someone who is being very safe and buying a treasury bill and only getting a 3% return. And that's kind of baked into the system. Regardless, everybody was talking about Bitcoin as a great, I don't want to get too much of an aside, but Bitcoin and making 10 times return, making 100 times return, that is potentially true, but like in any kind of investment, and I'm going to use quotation marks for Bitcoin as an investment, that is tied to the risk. you can make a 10 times or 100 times return, but just as easily you could use half your money or all your money on those things. So it's not like these things magically have a ton of money without a ton of risk going in with them, and people are now realizing how much risk these things have. It's just that they didn't notice it before when times were actually going well. This is a basic bare bones. I can go much more in depth into this, but really it's about learning the mathematics and trying to minimize expenses and minimize the depreciation of your value over time while trying to maximize the amount you're bringing in and maximize the amount of appreciation of investments that you have over time. And if you can start getting more appreciation than depreciation, then you have started producing wealth without having to work. And that is how you retire, and that is how you get out of poverty. It is not easy, it is not fun, and usually you have to dig yourself in deeper or make things harder before you get better and make wise long-term decisions. But that's it for today's lecture. For last month or last week, the votes came in. We're going to put the passive income towards the church and library fund. So I think that's going to be over $1,000 now. And then next month we will see how much passive income we've gotten from our investments. You can look that up on our financial videos and also online on our financial reports that are put out every month. But that's it for this week. Thank you very much for watching. This is Dr. Frank with the Church of Rational Truth, signing